Once again, we appreciate your company. We start with the NCA. Now, President Mahama has called for clemency for the 64 radio stations facing NCA shutdowns over regulatory breaches as he directs the Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation to work with the NCA to restore their licenses. Earlier, the National Communications Authority, NCA, ordered the radio stations to cease operations immediately after breaching the Electronic Communications Act, warning of serious consequences after non-compliance. The infractions include operating without valid authorization, exceeding transmission limits, and non-payment of license fees. Notably, NPP-affiliated stations such as Asase Radio and Wuntumi Radio are among those affected. Let's bring you the details of that statement, which I'll just be reading to you on your screens shortly. And it reads, NCA orders defaulting FM broadcasting stations to suspend operations. Details are as follows. On the 12th day of June 2025, the National Communications Authority has directed non-compliant FM broadcasting stations to immediately suspend operations on their respective frequencies for various infractions. The enforcement actions has become necessary due to persistent violations of regulatory requirements, specifically regulations 54 and 56 of the Electronic Communications Regulations. And it continues to say that this action follows a directive issued by the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, mandating the NCA to enforce applicable sanctions on stations found to be in violation of the regulations in the recent audit conducted by the NCA to ensure full compliance. It still continues to read, following this directive, NCA has commenced enforcement of regulatory sanctions against defaulting entities identified in the frequency audit report in phases. The categorizations of the infractions under the first phase is as follows. It's been categorized into four. 1, 28 stations operating with expired authorizations. Now, some of these stations, the NCA has been explaining, were ordered by the NCA in 2024 to cease broadcasting, but have persisted in the illegality. This represents violation of Section 2(4) of the Electronic Communications Act, Act 775. And the second infraction as well will be 14 FM stations that were issued notices of revocation for failure to set up within 2 years from the date of the authorization, but subsequently requested for inspection, but the process has not been completed due to various lapses they have to rectify, but are still on air. These stations are in violation of the said regulation that we earlier cited. Now, I'll take you now live to Parliament, where the Minister in charge of Communications is addressing this particular matter on the floor of Parliament.
To certify that the station conforms to the standards established by the NCA for radio broadcasting in Ghana. It is upon the grant of the test transmission authorization or a certificate of compliance that the station can commence operation. This process, Mr. Speaker, is not optional. It is the legal foundation for ensuring that our national spectrum is used responsibly, professionally, and in the public interest. Mr. Speaker, the term of an FM radio broadcasting authorization is 5 years. Under Regulation 56 of the ECR 2011, a renewal application must be submitted to the NCA at least 3 months, 90 days before the expiration of the existing authorization. Failure to comply with this 90-day prior timeline results in the application or any new application being treated as a new application before the NCA. In fact, the Electronic Communications Tribunal, chaired by Justice Dateba, affirmed this position in the case of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association versus the NCA Appeal Number ECT/APP/002/2017. Mr. Speaker, on 12 February 2025, shortly after I assumed office as the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, I issued a directive to the NCA to produce a complete listing of frequency authorizations granted or renewed within the preceding 60 days. The objective of the audit was to produce an accurate and up-to-date inventory of all assigned, unassigned, and unauthorized frequency holdings in Ghana. It sought to identify cases of spectrum hoarding, detect underutilized frequency bands, and strengthen enforcement action against entities operating outside the law. Mr. Speaker, alarming revelations unearthed by the initial exercise necessitated me to expand this directive to a nationwide forensic audit of all FM broadcasting authorizations aimed at discharging our sacred duty to manage state assets with integrity. This is part of our Operation Recover All Loot initiative, ORAL. Mr. Speaker, the NCA's audit showed several cases of non-compliance with the regulation and conditions of broadcasting authorization. The preliminary audit revealed over 600 active radio stations with frequencies, many of which were inactive, expired, or improperly renewed. Mr. Speaker, as of this morning, the NCA has commenced phase 2 of our regulatory enforcement following the broadcasting regulation frequency audit. This phase targets several categories of non-compliant FM stations whose operations contravene existing laws and regulations and includes the following. Group 1, 28 FM radio stations who are currently operating with expired authorizations. Despite the NCA instructing these stations to cease operations in 2024, several of these stations have continued broadcasting unlawfully. These actions constitute a violation of Section 2.4 of the Electronic Communications Act 2008. Group 2, 14 FM stations which were issued notices of revocation for failure to establish operations within the required 2-year period following the grant of their authorizations. These stations later requested technical inspections but have not completed the process and have continued to broadcast in violation of Regulation 54 of the Electronic Communications Regulation LI 1991. Group 3, 13 FM stations which applied for authorization to continue operating and have been issued provisional authorization but have not settled the provisional authorization fees in full. Mr. Speaker, without payment of these fees, their authorizations are invalid and their broadcast is a violation of Section 2.4 of Act 775. The last group of stations that we took action on this morning are 7 FM stations who have paid their provisional authorization fees but have not yet received final authorization in fulfillment of the technical and regulatory requirements under Regulation 54 of LI 1911. Mr. Speaker, spectrum is a finite and highly valuable national resource. It is a public good held in trust for the people of Ghana. Those granted access must therefore comply strictly with all applicable legislations. Mr. Speaker, a few minutes ago, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President, directed that the Ministry of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation work with the regulator, the NCA, to allow all the affected radio stations some additional time to correct the identified breaches within a defined time frame. Those who fail to do so shall have their authorizations formally revoked under the law. In line with this directive from His Excellency the President, the Ministry and the NCA have granted a further 30-day grace period to all defaulting entities. Mr. Speaker, this is not the same as the arbitrary revocations and hefty fines imposed under the previous administration. As a current government, the ministry has also been instructed to waive all the applicable fines that should have been applied to the defaulting entities. Mr. Speaker, since morning, I have received calls from colleagues on both sides of the aisle, notifying me that some interests they may hold have been affected by the ongoing exercise. Dear honorable colleagues, we passed the laws and have a high bar set for ourselves as honorable members of this august house. We need to lead the way with exemplary conduct. As a ministry and regulator, we are status agnostic and will be fair to everyone irrespective of ethnic, religious, political, or social affiliation. Mr. Speaker, let me, just for the records, name the stations that have been affected. Table 1, FM stations that have been issued expiry of authorization letters for failure to apply for renewal. Number 1, Life World Broadcast Limited, operating in Offenso on 94.3 FM. 2, Akpini Communication Limited, operating in Pando on 96.7 FM. 3, Victory FM in Aflao, operating on 96.1 FM. 4, Oracle Multimedia, operating in Nadoli on 88.5 FM. 5, Jewel Group Limited in Duayao, Kwanta, operating on 102.7. 6, Bolton Portfolio Limited, operating in Nkoko on 96.9 FM. 7, the Ghana Institute of Journalism, operating in Accra on 97.7 FM. 8, Obrempong FM, operating in Agona Swedru on 91.7 FM. 9, KD Community Multimedia, operating in Kede on 92.5 FM. 10, Skoja Limited, operating in Joje on 94.5 FM. 11, Press Express Limited, also known as Daily Guide, operating in Accra on 91.5 FM. Obra FM Limited, operating in Takrady on 89.3 FM. Unity Broadcasting Limited, operating in Impoho, 88.7 FM. Jimas FM Limited, operating in Yeji, 102.3 FM. Kantanka Media Limited, operating in Cape Coast, 92.1 FM. Bewa Radio, operating in Yendi, 106.5 FM. Unique Gateway Communication Limited, operating in Nkoko, 105.7 FM. Ken International Company Limited, operating in Achim Swedru, 89.1 FM. Dreams Ghana Media, operating in New Abirim, 104.9 FM. Velvet Beam Foundation, operating in Asankrigwa, 92.9 FM. Magic Group Company, operating in Salaga, 101.9 FM. Don Plus Multimedia, operating in Ho, 105.9 FM. Testlight Company Limited, operating in Wa, 96.7 FM. Global Media, Tepa, 97.3 FM. IMAX Media, Tamale, 104.3 FM. Limanya Radio, Wa, 95.7 FM. Pandai Star Radio, operating in Pandai, 107.3 FM. Ebiamo FM, operating in Jomoro on 100.5 FM. They've all been shut down. Table 2, FM stations that were issued revocation notices. Act Forum Ghana Limited, operating in Akpafumimpiasem, 88.1 FM. Chinias Empire Limited, operating in Tumu, 96.3 FM. Confidence Commodities, operating in Swaman, Dadieso, 90.7. F5 Eagles Company, operating in Ajuafua, 93.7. NEAT FM Limited, operating in Tamale, 105.3 FM. Primary Stars Limited, operating in Banda, 102.5 FM. Subampa Community Radio in Barakesi, 96.7 FM. Wasaman FM in Atieku on 101.9 FM. Mr. Speaker, number 9, Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited. Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited, operating in Takrady on 101.3 FM. Number 10, Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited, operating in Accra on 95.9 FM. Jimbali Community Association in Jimbali, 95.9. Kingdom Dynamic Kukrantumi, 93.3. Pro Royal Investment in Tepa, 94.7. And Resurrection Television in Takrady, 99.3. Table 3, Siadarak Enterprise in Edukrom, 95.5. Bangu Company, Tamale 97.3, Jam Multimedia in Kintampo 101.3, Chameleon Communication in Wa 91.1, Chaka Multimedia in Jasikan 88.7, Clickshot Multimedia in Shama 89.9, Free Minds in Tema 104.5, Gemsak Media Network in Nswatri 103.3, Mediacast Limited in Kumasi 102.5, Mobile Zone in Bolgatanga 94.3, Ultimate Multimedia in Tamale on 107.1, West FM in Ho on 97.5, Western Salam Company Limited in Takrady 89.7. And Mr. Speaker, the final table, 7 stations. Asasi Broadcasting Company Limited in Accra on 99.5 FM. Dynamic Chapters Limited in Wenchi on 95.7. Global Media Alliance in Accra on 98.9. God Steve Media Association in Atimpoku on 87.7. Rejoice FM in Mim on 101.7. Sankofa in Takrady on 98.7. And Sweet FM in Chifopraso on 106.5. Mr. Speaker, our goal is not punishment, but accountability, order, and the responsible stewardship of a public critical resource. This is not routine housekeeping. This is a declaration against impunity, abuse, and inertia. The airwaves do not belong to the powerful and connected. They belong to the public, and we are duty-bound to govern them transparently and effectively. Our fight is not against free speech. It is against lawlessness, asset misappropriation, and regulatory defiance. I remain committed to reclaiming what rightfully belongs to the Ghanaian people and laying the foundations for a fair, modern, and technologically equipped broadcasting sector. Once again, Mr. Speaker, due to the clemency His Excellency the President has asked for, there is 30 days from today for all defaulting media houses to rectify their defaults and breaches. And Mr. Speaker, the ministry has shown that we are willing to reinstate. Earlier this year, we shut down 6 media houses who have all rectified their breaches and they have been reinstated. We urge the defaulting media houses to take advantage of the President's clemency for 30 days. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, that is the statement from the Honorable Minister for Communication and Digitalization. It is now, we now welcome comment from honorable members.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, perhaps the majority leader should be the one to announce it. We've agreed 3-3 because we have the Honorable Afriye statement and other questions.
Today we have a lot of statements, yes, actually. Sure. So is the 3-3 going to include the leadership?
Yes, it is so. Yes, it is so.
Very well. So it is 2-2 then leadership. Thank you very much. Honourable members, it is now for your comment on the statement made by the Minister. Honourable members, let's proceed to comment on the statement guided by Standing Order 91. Honourable members, the floor is now yours. Yes, Honourable member, you have the floor.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for this opportunity. It's true that the media is the fourth estate of the realm. And then within our democratic dispensation, Mr. Speaker, we know the role the media has played and continues to play in entrenching multi-party democracy, in entrenching democracy in our country. Mr. Speaker, if I listen to the minister, I get the impression that we are about to monetize free speech in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, in our communities, Mr. Speaker, in our communities, we all represent constituencies as we sit here. And we know the roles these community radio stations play. So even if you talk about commercial radio stations and TV stations, I wouldn't bother too much. But what about the community radio stations? You've listed about 62 radio stations and radio and TV stations. Most of them are community radio stations. If you stop them from broadcasting, how do we communicate to our communities in Ghana? Mr. Speaker, the 1992 Constitution did introduce freedom of speech and then expression, including that of the media. This minister, this honorable minister, when he was at the opposite side, was the number one person who went all over the place complaining about the decisions that were taken against some of these same radio stations and TV stations that flouted the law. Now what has changed? Mr. Speaker, what has changed? If you plan to give these radio stations clemency, as is rightly said, then why do you go ahead to issue a statement saying that you are banning these radio stations, then within 3 minutes you do a 360 to say that you are now giving them clemency and that you're giving them a grace period? Mr. Speaker, these are settings. We think that the decision is arbitrary. There was no need for the initial statement to ban these radio stations. You could as well have gone round or spoken to these radio stations, issue a statement giving them this same clemency or this same pardon that you are giving them. Give them some time to fulfill all the infractions or fulfill all their the payments they are supposed to, the payments that they are supposed to make, if indeed they owe. Mr. Speaker, I'll end by saying that from our side, we think that this decision was not taken with the right mind. We think that it was targeted at some political party people who own radio stations, and we think that it's good that the good people of this country will rise up against this decision. We shouldn't allow political parties, we shouldn't allow the NDC, we shouldn't allow the minister to use his powers to arbitrarily ban radio stations. Mr. Speaker, I end by urging all of us to stand up against this medium terrorism. I'm grateful.
Honorable member, if you say a decision is not taken with the right mind, is that not violating our rules? I will urge upon you to do the needful and then let's make progress.
Mr. Speaker, if I say that the decision was not taken with the right mind, I am saying that the intention,
honorable member, with all due respect, I am just drawing your attention to it and asking you to do the needful.
Mr. Speaker,
I'm not to argue with you.
I withdraw and then I withdraw, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Thank you, honorable member. Yes, honorable member, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I humbly commend the minister for this move that has been made, and also, Mr. Speaker, to show our deepest appreciation to the President of the Republic of Ghana for showing fatherly love to those radio stations and the media houses. Mr. Speaker, it is established that in every society where law does not reign, we are put in the state of anarchy. We are put in the Hobbesian state where life is nasty, where life is short, and where life is brutish. Mr. Speaker, insofar as we need to sanitize our system, we need to ensure that pragmatism, meritocracy, and honesty reigns. And this is what our minister is doing. We cannot allow impudence. We cannot allow people to do whatever they like. I heard my brother saying that it is targeted at some people and it is local radio stations. Should we allow, because we want radio stations, local radio stations to go on, should we allow people to live as they want? No, we are in a civilized society, and that civilized society must be governed by rules. This civilized society must have leadership, and leadership must show tenacity. Leadership must show that we have leaders. So I want to encourage him. I want to tell the minister that he is on the right course. Ghana is behind him. All of us are behind him. We should ensure that our society, our airwaves is cleared. We should ensure that our airwaves are sanitized. We should ensure that nobody hides behind anything, behind any authority or whatever, to do whatever they like. Mr. Minister, you are encouraged. Go forward, go ahead, and we are all behind you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Matthew Nyindam.
What is your problem? Who is a victim? Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me also comment on the minister's statements. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure in this House we all agree that without the media, whatever we do here will be in darkness. And we all agree and we prefer that ugly noises in this country is better than culture of silence. And for that matter, the role of the media cannot be underestimated. Mr. Speaker, I agree that when we pass laws, we must obey the laws. But sometimes also try to see how our laws operate, in a sense that the closure of media houses is not starting today. My minister from the other side has been complaining when he was in opposition. Anytime laws are implemented and some media houses have to be closed down, he will speak vehemently that we should allow the media, because the media cannot be shut down. So he should think about it today. But Mr. Speaker, in his statement, he said some media houses have paid, about 7 media houses have paid up their dues. So I don't see why somebody will pay his dues and the authority mandated not doing their work, and you put them as part of the group that you want to sanction. Why will you do that? Tell me why. Mr. Speaker, it also interests me a lot, and all of us must be concerned. I have not seen in the law anywhere that if sanctions are taken, it is the responsibility of the president to give them pardon. I haven't seen that. But interesting, NCA issued a statement today, and in less than 3-4 hours, the president just comes in to give clemency. Mr. Speaker, don't you see something fishy inside there? Don't you suspect some fishy inside there? Mr. Speaker, there is some kind of fishy deal in it, because it's not even 1 day, it's not even 48 hours. When did you report to them? Mr. Speaker, we all want to agree, and we all want to say that we should look at our laws again, because it should not be in our it will not be in our interest as a nation that our laws that will promote freedom of speech, individuals or media houses will be struggling to renew their licenses. It means that The minister must look at our laws very well. We must deal with NCA to make it in such a way that some of these things don't reoccur. It should be very liberal. And most of these stations we are talking about are community radio stations. Community radio stations. These are not commercial radio stations that are making profit. They are there to inform, to educate, and to entertain. So I will appeal to Minister that fine, it is good that the President has set in, and he's talking about just 30 days. Mr. Speaker, some radio stations are not able to renew for the whole year, and today you are giving them just 30 days. I think that is not enough. 30 days is not enough. And the minister must look at it again, and I sincerely believe that as a nation, we should fight to promote media freedom. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yeah.
Thank you. Honourable members, before taking a further comment, permit me to acknowledge the presence of our student visitors in the House. Brema Esikuma Senior High School. Their leader is Mr. Francis Azuma, a teacher. They are from Esikuma Odoben Brakwa. They numbered 80. God's Time Preparatory School, led by Mr. Adoben Kinsley, proprietor of the school. They are from Chufo Ati Mokwa. We have Lotus Field International School, led by Mr. Joseph Edwin, headmaster. They are from Amasama, they numbered 46. We also have Atlantic Bridge Initiative.
And live there from Parliament, the Speaker for Communications addressing members of Parliament on the progress so far. But as you may know, in a statement released moments ago and signed by government spokesperson Felix Kwachiofosu, President Mahama has directed the sector minister to liaise with the NCA to restore the operations of the affected radio stations. And I'll be reading to you the content of that statement shortly. Now, President John Dramani Mahama has directed the Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation to liaise with the National Communications Authority, NCA, to immediately restore the broadcast of 64 radio stations affected by the regulator's action. The President believes that regulatory compliance must take into account the need to uphold and enhance media freedom, and that requiring radio stations to shut down while awaiting the regularization of their authorization could limit the space of expressing such freedoms. And the President has asked the Minister to work with the NCA on a reasonable time frame within which the affected stations should regularize their authorization. And it's been signed by government spokesperson Felix Kwachiofosu. Now, joining me live on Zoom this afternoon is President of the Ghana Independent Broadcaster Association, GIBA, Cecil Sonkwa Mills. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure you have seen both statements, but what's your initial reaction and how do you feel about the clemency by the President?
Thank you for the opportunity. I think the President's intervention has been timely because from behind the scenes, we're trying to understand exactly a number of key issues. First of all, we do not have the full list. We've not been able to get our hands onto the full list of stations that were impacted on this list. As I speak, we still don't. I've only heard the minister now read the list, so we do not know. Now we've also seen the 4 different sections of the infractions. We were wondering which body or how are we going to actually have some intervention. And I think, as mentioned, some people thought that some people needed a bit more time based on their category of service that they deliver. You see, there's one thing that we should not forget, that radio stations, yes, they use frequencies to transmit, But what is their major job?
So if you can just hold your thoughts in a minute, especially because you don't even have the details of the radio stations. I am taking you and our viewers back to Parliament where the Minority Speaker is speaking.
Or media. And in particular, there shall be no law requiring any person to obtain a license as a prerequisite to the establishment or operation of a newspaper, journal, or other media for mass communication or information. Mr. Speaker, 4. Editors and publishers of newspapers and other institutions of the mass media shall not be subject to control or interference by government, nor shall they be penalized or harassed for their editorial opinions and views or the content of their publications. 5. All agencies of the mass media shall, at all times, be free to uphold the principles, provisions, and objectives of this Constitution, and shall uphold the responsibility and accountability of government to the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, lastly, on 162, that's 1626, any medium for the dissemination of information to the public which publishes a statement about or against any person shall be obliged to publish a rejoinder, or a rejoinder, if any, from the person in respect of whom the publication was made. So, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution provides a comprehensive guide on the operations of the media space in Ghana. Let me rely on the views expressed by the Honorable Sam George, MP for Ningo Pampram, in the 8th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, he spoke strongly against ministerial action in respect of such defaults. He was against any form of penalty. And Mr. Speaker, in his argument, he relied heavily on the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I adopt those views as though they were mine, to the extent that the Constitution makes certain broader provisions. And this is not to suggest that I am against the subsidiary laws enacted for the purposes of regulating these media houses as part of the checks and balances that are required or needed in every democracy. Mr. Speaker, democracy must be guided for the good of democracy itself. So I agree. But Mr. Speaker, in a situation where it becomes obvious that in the exercise of such discretion, there is a clear breach of Article 296, as my respected colleague, the former ambassador to South Africa and MP for Abrim just said, the intent must be looked at. And clearly, it comes without doubt that Article 296 has some questions for NCA and the ministry to answer. What we are seeing in respect of the statement from the presidency later this afternoon, a supposed clemency. Mr. Speaker, these are things that are done for the optics when the political system sees that there's a backlash. It is a very rich statement, very rich. And we take this supposed clemency with a pinch of salt. Mr. Speaker, we take this with a pinch of salt. That the NCA, together with the ministry, have embarked on a certain path, and now Mr. President, exercising his supervisory mandate, is now telling them that don't do it. Couldn't this have been discussed in-house prior to this decision? Well, Mr. Speaker, we have been in government before, so we can understand the situation the government finds itself. Mr. Speaker, I have heard certain views being expressed to the effect that, yesterday we heard of similar actions by the executive. I recall that as a member of the appointment committee, the issue of the closure of some radio stations became a critical matter for us to even discuss at the appointment committee. And our friends opposite were very, very firm in their conviction. And I shared those sentiments with them. Granted that something happened yesterday which was not good for our country. Do we have to repeat them? No. Since 1993, no one here can tell me that our democratic journey has been static. It's been very dynamic, it's been fluid. Things are done and improved upon. So in this reset regime, we expect better. No, Mr. Speaker, you do not break it and pretend to be fixing it when it's not broken. You broke it. So if you are fixing, then you say we should commend you, we should be happy. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, clemency is a belated thing. It's because of the public backlash. I would want the NCA and the ministry to be strongly guided by Article 296 of the 1992 Constitution. A regulation cannot overreach and override an express constitutional provision. In the least, the regulation is to guide, but not to impede and stampede the process. What happened today, where Asasi Radio was shut down, Wuntumi FM was denied the opportunity to broadcast, Happy FM denied the opportunity to broadcast. Mr. Speaker, must not ever happen again. Because, Mr. Speaker, when same happened yesterday, it received that criticism. Mr. Speaker, I have with me, most respectfully, the Hansard of this House, October 19, 2017, column 998. Mr. Speaker, the work of a member of parliament is to make his advocacy and rely on records and rely on facts, rely on a reliable research team. And I cannot be making lame arguments here. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sam George, at column 998, had this to say: I put it on record that the NCA failed to come before this august House in 2015 to approve their schedule of penalties, and that the schedule of penalties as used by the NCA imposing this charge did not come before this august House of Parliament. As such, NCA is carrying out and perpetrating an illegality, which this House must stop because we are vested with upholding the 1992 Constitution. And I agree with you. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, order.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, order.
Mr. Speaker, this was the respected colleague who was inviting us to uphold the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the gravamen of this submission was to the effect that the administrative body with regulatory powers was required by law to comply with certain provisions of the Constitution. And that is why he relied on the veritable words, we are vested with upholding the 1992 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, when authority is given by the Constitution, the same Constitution imposes an obligation on that authority. And I have said earlier that that limitation is clearly defined by Article 296. So clearly, I am saying that the respected Honourable Minister must not change his principles by virtue of his new position of honor. He fundamentally agrees that we must uphold the Constitution. And at the risk of being repetitive, the provisions in Article 162, as relied on supra, require of us not to impose any impediment. So if the regulation would impede press freedom, our duty as a house, as Honorable Sam George invited us to do, is to uphold the Constitution. It's our duty bona fide. So, Mr. Speaker, let's not justify in any way this attitude of shut down. If yesterday we were allowed on the rooftops that it is not good to suspend or shut down, then today let us maintain the same principle and say that we would rather have an administrative engagement. Why should Asase Radio be denied the opportunity to broadcast? Why? Why will Wontumi be denied opportunity? Why is Wontumi suffering? Why is Wontumi suffering? Why is Wontumi suffering? What has Wontumi done? What at all has Wontumi done? Mr. Speaker, if we say we want to perfect our democracy, then we must be seen to be walking that talk towards perfecting our democracy. This business of it happened yesterday, so we must continue this vicious cycle. Mr. Speaker, it won't help any of us. Today, I will repeat what I've been saying since 7 January 2025, that this power of 187 is not permanent. We have seen 169 before, and we saw 137. So let us all be guided and know that the power immediately you are given is like an ice block. It begins to melt. We should be guided so that when the power comes to us, we will remember to put in certain blocks that one day we will use it for equity in times of need. But if you have a member for Clemency who now says in his submission that he is applauding the harsh measures, the punitive actions of a regulatory authority, which is contrary to Constitution. If a lawyer from Clemency and a member of this house argues that he finds no problem with an administrative authority vested with regulatory powers exceeding its mandate, that Mr. Speaker, as for Hansard,
Honorable Minority
it would
Leader.
always be a great
Honorable Minority
witness.
Leader.
So, Mr. Speaker,
please operate within Order 91.4.
Very well.
So,
Mr. Speaker, all that we are saying today will be referred to tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, so I would want to encourage Honorable Sector Minister to rather deepen the engagement process as directed by the President. Some of these belated actions for the purpose of optics will not help the cause of democracy. Stay away from the punitive actions. Stay away from this excuse of you need to enforce a regulation, especially when in enforcing the regulation you may be slipping out of the confines of the Constitution. We as the minority here will always move with full force to support all those who will be at the receiving end of any form of injustice. Mr. Speaker, without more, I shall resume my seat and listen to the majority leader to have his take on this matter. Thank you so much.
yes, Majority Leader.
Right, Honorable Speaker, like I indicated earlier in the day, we have about 30 questions scheduled to be asked of ministers. And the ministers are all here, from the Minister of Finance, Health, Youth Empowerment, Roads. They're all here to answer questions that we have asked. And so, Mr. Speaker, I won't spend that much time, except to just say that I have cited a correspondence, a letter written in 2022 and 2023, and I just think that it will be useful to close this matter by just reading those letters. Mr. Speaker, on the 22nd of February 2023, there was a letter addressed to the Managing Director, Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited, Kumasi. Dear Sir,
violation of conditions of authorization. We refer to the inspection conducted at the FM broadcasting premises of Wontumi Multimedia Company Limited at Kokomlemle, Accra, in the Greater Accra region on 14th of June 2022. The inspection revealed the following lapses in the setup and operations of Wontumi Multimedia Company Limited. 1. The station's transmission system was located at Accra Newtown instead of Ajangote or within a 5-kilometer radius from Ajangote as required by condition 3 of your authorization dated 26 October 2021. This is causing interference to stations using neighboring frequencies. 2. There was no fire certificate from the Ghana National Fire Service. No fire certificate. 3. There was no permit from the Environmental Protection Agency approving the installation of the mast. Wontumi Multimedia Company Limited is hereby directed to rectify the above anomalies within 90 days from the date of this letter, that is by 21st May 2023, and invite the National Communication Authority for a second inspection. Please be informed that the cost of the second inspection amounts to 2,000 Ghana cedis and shall be borne by the Wontumi Multimedia Company. Please take note that the issuance of a test transmission authorization for Wontumi Multimedia Company Limited to commence operating its FM broadcasting station in Accra is pending compliance with the above directives. Yours faithfully, signed, Director General Joe Anochi. That is the first one. I have a second one, signed also by the same Director General Joe Anochi to the same company, the Managing Director, Wontumi Multimedia Company Limited, also on 21st December 2022, also titled Violation of Conditions of Authorization. Same conditions, transmission challenges, no fire certificate, no permit, repeated and signed again by the same Director General, Joe Anochi. Mr. Speaker, you see, when you take a license and the license stipulates conditions, please endeavor to comply with the conditions of the license. It is as simple as that. It is a national asset and the frequency has been allocated to you, subject to payment of certain license fees. Please pay your license fees. I don't think any of us is interested in waking up in the morning, tuning into a radio to hear what is happening before you even step out of your house, only to be told that the radio station has been put off. So we don't want that. But please endeavor to comply with the conditions under which you have been licensed to operate. So that is all that I will say. And also to emphasize that I have looked at the laws under which the minister has issued the suspension directives. Mr. Speaker, there are two laws, basically, and regulations that govern. The National Communication Authority Act 2008. National Communication Authority Act 2008. And the Electronic Communication Act 2008. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask, in 2008, who was in power? In 2008, who was in power? Who was in power? Which political party was in power? Which political party? The NPP. The NPP. The NPP was in power in 2008. And the laws that govern electronic communication and the National Communication Authority, which define the obligations of license owners, were passed by the NPP. So I am surprised that today, the leader of the minority, an MPP leader of the minority, and a lawyer for that matter, will stand in this chamber and say that it is unconstitutional and a violation of the Constitution for laws to be passed governing the management of frequencies. And yet, it was your party and your government in 2008 that enacted those legislation through this parliament. So I think that when you urge others to be consistent, you must also be consistent yourself. So if you say Sam George has to be consistent, I also want to also be consistent. Be consistent with the position of your party on the management of frequencies. And as for His Excellency the President, I'm surprised that you will say that he is being magnanimous because of public backlash. When did the suspensions take place? And when did that public backlash occur that I sitting here haven't heard? When did that public backlash occur? The suspension occurred at what time of the day? At 10 a.m. this morning. And the clemency came at 12. Within 2 hours, who could have exercised such public backlash that His Excellency the President will be magnanimous to the extent that he is being? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, yes, we are representatives of the people, but first and foremost, if we sit in this house and laws are being violated and ministers are taking steps to enforce those laws, and we stand in this house and attempt to condemn those ministers, then we might as well stop coming here. Because we are not here to make laws that should not be enforced. So when ministers are enforcing the laws, we should be the first to be commending them. I remember saying this about this same minister the last time he tried to enforce the law, and some members stood in this house and made statements that seemed to undermine efforts to enforce the law. This is the last thing that should be happening in this country, in this house, that we have enacted a law and the minister is enforcing the law, and we will stand in this chamber and try to take the minister on for enforcing the law. Please, let's stop it. Otherwise, there's no use being in this house. Mr. Speaker, on those very few words, I think that I commend the minister. We thank the President for his decision to direct the minister to suspend his actions. But the minister has given a timeline, and I think that all of us should be urging the media stations, the radio stations, the media houses to try and comply with the law. When it is genuinely difficult to comply with the law, I'm sure the minister will know. When you actually make an effort, the minister will know. And the minister will not arbitrarily just shut down or suspend a radio station when there is clear evidence that the radio station is making effort to comply with the law. So, Mr. Speaker, on that note, we thank the minister for coming to make such an important, urgent statement on a matter of government policy. And I think that we can continue with the next stage in the business of the House.
Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of cooperation, as we obliged our respected leader, I want to plead with you that since Majority Leader is done, if we can take the statement by Honorable Ayo. However, just a second. However, I've received communication through the table office, the pleasure of the chair. So I will yield to that.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Minister for Communication. Please be brief.
Yes. I just want to say thank you to the House for the comments. We are guided by the clemency His Excellency has asked us to embark on. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the Majority Leader as well for reading the letter. Mr. Speaker, the NCA and the Ministry were only enforcing letters and directives that were given in 2022 and 2023. We have written several letters. And so the President, as a good, caring father, and I can appreciate the difficulty in appreciating a good and caring father. If you don't have a good and caring father, you can't appreciate a good and caring father. But because Father's Day is coming on Sunday, President Mahama, as a good father, has directed a 30 days clemency. I would urge all media houses that are affected to take advantage of this Father's Day gift from His Excellency the President and remedy their breaches. Mr. Speaker, they should do the needful. But just so that this house is a house of records, Mr. Speaker, the minority leader asks questions, why do you take Asase off? I think he should go and read the Facebook page of Mr. Gabriel Tredakon, who admits that the general manager of Asase FM has told him that they failed to do their renewal, which was due in October, and they only did it in December. Mr. Speaker, the law is the law. The law is the law. I thank you.
Honorable members, let's make progress. Honorable members, let's move to question number 116, standing in the name of Francis Xavier Kojo Sosu, Member of Parliament for Madina. Honorable member, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Roads and Highways the steps being taken to complete the inner roads project in Madina started under the previous administration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister, you have the floor.
Well, we're still bringing you live proceedings from Parliament, live on the pulse here. And I still have Mr. Cecil Sunkwa Mills. He's the president of GIBA. Thank you for really staying all through the proceedings in Parliament. And you may have heard arguments that have been raised, that have been advanced in Parliament on both sides. But currently, do you have any concerns at all on all of the stations that have been shut down, though President has given some level of clemency?
Yeah, thank you. I was just about making a comment on the clemency for the president. We can see from the statement, it asked the minister and the NCA, he asked the minister and the NCA to come up with a time frame for this to happen. And I think the biggest thing is the fact that we had the presidency put a foot in, so that we have had time to even have these discussions, whilst in the meantime, the citizenry who have been listening to all these stations have been denied access to content. The biggest thing that we say is that within all this framework, we would ask that where is the National Media Commission? Because in the absence of a president who would have given this clemency, I tell you, it would have been another whole battle for the people who have not had their media access, without anybody in the middle to actually look at giving such terms and conditions. It's also interesting to know, and what I was going to say is that many a time, and we've said in the broadcasting bill which is supposed to come, there is no way that media is delivered without a frequency. So by separating the person who provides the roads for media to be delivered to the masses in Ghana from the person who is regulating the media that is being given, is not a workable solution in this country. Otherwise, we'll have the NCA looking strictly at keeping the road the way they want without actually concern of the fact that we're actually denying people access to media as guaranteed by the Constitution. And 167B of the Constitution actually allows the Media Commission to receive complaints. And this can actually qualify as a complaint from the NCA before the stations are shut down so that there can be some kind of engagement in this. There were 4 categories mentioned. You will find that for some people, there were various types of infractions. For some people, the type of infractions that they had, did it actually warrant an immediate closure? Or could we have done a second letter warning? Even when you owe money, there are processes. So there is some discussion that needs to an intermediary, and we should start involving other constitutional stakeholders that are recognized in these processes. Because if we had, maybe today we have President Mahama who has stepped in to ask for this to be done. What if we did not have we had a president who did not give any clemency and left this to go on? Where would we be?
Right.
So much as we need to bring in order and performance.
Let's explore the role of the media, really, which seeks to really bring all the other arms of government into real scrutiny and accountability. And let's try to see if there's a balance to what the laws are and what a media house should adhere to, whilst the public would also trust them that they're really broadcasting what they are supposed to be broadcasting. And I ask because the few questions that were asked in Parliament, that if the media house itself is not adhering to the regulations, how can the people as well also trust them that they're broadcasting what they're supposed to be broadcasting? What do you say to this?
So, like I said in the beginning, GIBA has always been out for order and conformance. You remember that when this process started, we engaged the Minister of Communication, and I personally also had an engagement with the Minister for Government in Communications on this. We met, and the Minister did say he was going to actually also do some engagement with GIBA. Okay. What we did is we actually approached the NCA and we asked for information. We didn't get a list, but we asked for the type of infractions, and we reached out to our membership and we said, if the NCA had actually written to you as an entity with some infractions which could lead to closure, can you please reach out to us? And then we'll look at how we can resolve this. We had a number of stations reach out to us, and some of them were actually minor issues, some wrong submissions posted in the wrong places. We had different situations.
Okay.
Yet some people, of course, can see, did not reach out to us. And let's remember that all radio stations and TV stations are not necessarily members of GIBA.
Right.
Some who were out of GIBA did reach out, and where we could guide them with support of the NCA, we did.
Okay.
Now it has come to this, which of course we woke up this morning and the stations were actually sent this letter this morning to close.
Well, we have about 30 days clemency. With 30 days clemency from the presidency, finally maybe from us asking you, what will GIBA be doing, especially for those affected radio stations?
The first thing I ask is that what is actually the basis for 30 days? Is it adequate? So we actually do not know the basis for 30 days. Yes, there's clemency. In the letter, 30 days was not stated. The 30 days must have come from the ministry and the NCA. The basis of 30 days, we are not sure. Okay. But the president asked that they should have that engagement and come up with a solution. So 30 days is 30 days, but we do not know if 30 days. Somebody's infraction could be corrected in less than 30 days. Maybe somebody in that same one of the 4 categories may need 60 days. But I guess we should do some engagement and find out and make sure that if somebody can actually correct the infractions, but will take 60 days, there is some room for that to happen. Right. And I still insist that the NMC should be brought to the fore.
Okay.
We cannot handle media issues separately without the Media Commission.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Mr. Cecil Sunkwa-Mills. Of course, this is still developing, and so would ask for your continuous engagement as you also engage the stations that have been affected. Thank you for staying all through the time that we had to cross over to Parliament. You're watching The Pulse, still moving on to other stories. A glimmer of hope for patients across the country, as Parliament's Health Committee says it is expecting good news from the nurses who are returning to meet their council to decide on the outcome of the meeting. Joy News sources suggest the nurses may call off their 10-day strike following the talks. The meeting marks a critical opportunity for both sides to engage in meaningful dialogue and work towards mutually acceptable resolutions. The nurses are demanding better salaries, improved working conditions, and sufficient resources to deliver quality patient care. Now, let's go on the phone and talk to Dr. Kingsley Agyemang. He is member of the Health Committee in Parliament and who is also member of Parliament for Iwakwa South constituency. Thank you for your attention this afternoon. And so we know that this meeting ended about 2 p.m. today. We tried to engage the chair for the committee. Very little was said. But of course, we're learning that the strike may just be called off today. What did you really say to the leadership of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association?
Well, good afternoon to your listeners. I just need to reiterate what the chairman put out there. We had a very fruitful discussion with all the stakeholders. The Minister of Finance was present, the Minister of Health, Fair Wages Commission, National Labour Commission, and the nurses. And I must say that once again, the Health Committee was on top of issues, non-partisan discussions, pure national interest issues came up. And like you rightly said, the nurses, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Council is going to meet this evening, and we hope for a very positive feedback from their council.
The call to engagement was rather smooth. And I asked this because of the posture of the association. They looked as though they were very entrenched. They had an entrenched position. They looked as if it was a stalemate as of yesterday. Was it a difficult engagement?
It was initially, but like I said, this oversight, we played our oversight responsibility with the national interest in mind. And fostering change, I would say that egos were deflated. And we hope for a very positive feedback in the interest of the nation.
Okay. For you as a committee, you're looking forward to this feedback, close of day tomorrow, next week, next month?
We were told the council was going to meet this evening.
Okay.
So we hope for an outcome from the council.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Kingsley Agyemang is member of the Health Committee in Parliament. Now, joining me in studio is Maxwell Odro-Yeboah, National President, Union of Professional Nurses and Midwives, Ghana. Thank you, Maxwell, for joining us. So you were not part of the strike?
No, we weren't.
Why?
Because we felt it was not time for that. And engagement, dialogue, we thought was the way to go. It was not just, the timing was not right for us.
But prior to the strike action, did you hear from the grapevine? Did you know that your colleagues were going on strike, and did you engage them as well?
Thank you. Yes, we had a meeting on Tuesday, I think the 27th of May, where all the unions, had a discussion and we had some agreement in place. So we had, at that time, agreed to a certain roadmap. So it came to us as a surprise when on Tuesday night, the GRNMA said they were going to declare strike action and went through with that on Wednesday. We were surprised about that because we thought that the dialogue could, continue from there.
And while the strike action was ongoing, for your union or your association, what were you doing?
So we've been at work. We've been at posts. We've continuously encouraged our members to be at work because much as we want to have improved conditions of service, the citizens, the people, the poor people out there also need us. And so for us, we have continued serving the people and taking care of all the clients that are coming.
For your association, you total about how many for nurses and midwives?
So for the UPNMG as a body, we have over 32,000 members. So that's roughly about 40% of the total workforce of nurses in the country.
I mean, we saw that prior to today's engagement in Parliament, as we've just been engaging the member of the Health Committee in Parliament. So in trying to engage the other members, was it very difficult? I mean, of course, you may have been overwhelmed in the health facilities because your colleagues were not coming to work. Today, we're hearing that you're going to, they're going on conclave, and then maybe we're going to be hearing that the strike action will be cancelled. But did you engage them, and was it very difficult to even listen to you as colleagues?
Yeah, so engaging the GRNMA, yes, we have. And it's actually become a huge banter, between us to why we didn't join the strike action since we were fighting for a common cause. But if what has happened today and the information as you're giving me is anything to go by, then it means dialogue was the only option. Going on strike, causing, lives to be lost, we are going back to the table again. If they should call off the strike today, it means their demands were not yielded to by government whilst they were still on strike. And they are going to probably call it off to go back to the table to negotiate. What happens to the lives that have been lost during that period? And it was for that reason we said, we are still, on the table. Government is listening, he's engaging. Let's give them time. If it gets to a point where we believe they are not listening, they are refusing to engage us, then we can take the actions that.
And so for you, the main reason why you didn't join the strike action was because you believed in dialogue.
Exactly. And we had a pending meeting with the Minister of Finance, which was supposed to be on 18th June.
Okay.
That had not been, had not been on it. So we felt that, okay, so if we have a meeting with the minister coming up, why don't you wait after the meeting if we had nothing? Then we had a reason to go on the strike. But they thought otherwise for reasons best known to them.
But moving forward, when everything is implemented, of course, you would also be enjoying all of these implementation.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, you want to look into your camera and then speak to your colleagues as well, the one here, and hoping that by close of today, they'll call off the strike.
Thank you very much. So we want to, make a special appeal to the leadership of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives, Ghana GRNMA, that we are working, but we're being overwhelmed. We need them back to work. We're pleading with them. It's not, time to cause the unrest that is currently happening. Dialogue is the way to go. It's time for us to be at the table. Government is ready to make some concessions. Let's take that and then see what we can do for the good people of the country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel Iba, for joining us on The Pulse today. You're still watching The Pulse. We'll go for a quick one. When we come back, with over 3 years until the 2028 general elections, the NPP secession race is already heating up, rekindling rivalry and sparking fierce debate over who can reclaim power. You want to stay with us for that? Well, welcome back to The Pulse. And with over 3 years until the 2028 general elections, the NPP secession race is already heating up, rekindling rivalries and sparking fierce debate over who can reclaim power as the politically jokery intensifies. Even potential contenders are caught in the crossfire. Former Vice President and 2024 flag bearer Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia recently cited historical precedents to justify a second bid for leadership. But allies of Kennedy Japan have swiftly rejected that claim, arguing that party tradition allows for exceptions and that defeat doesn't guarantee a comeback. The exchange has reignited tensions in the party, still reeling from a crushing electoral loss, raising fresh questions about unity, loyalty, and the road to political redemption. But what does history actually say? Let's put on the screen some data so far as to what has been the trajectory for the presidential election results from 1992 to 2024 just recently. And you see on your screen the trajectory. The next slide would give us a better insight on who has made some better progress on, and of course you can see that the blue will be the color for the NPP. But the second slide, which you're just going to see, would be the national-wide delegate elections and how delegates have voted over the years as well. On your screen would be the color blue and red. Now let's go through it. You recall that in 1992, Albert Edu Boahen was the first ever candidate that was presented. And a little later, in 1996, J.A. Kufuor was presented because if you read the history, it will be recording that Albert Dubois didn't perform to the expectation of the party. Now, in 1996, J.A. Kufuor was presented, and in 1998, he won by 64.6%. And then you will have in 2007, Nana Akufo-Addo attempted. And then in 2010, again by 78, and you see the margin that as they went a little higher, their margins were increasing. And from 78, in 2014, Nana Akufo-Addo also performed with a 94%. And then when we got to 2023, 61% for Bawumia, which is where the debate has been starting, that, well, the performance will then show that if you didn't perform better, there shouldn't be a comeback for you. And then others have also said that, of course, many people or many flag bearers did not win at the first attempt, and when they came back, they did a lot better. And you can see that trajectory as well for ex-President Akufo-Addo. And so the question is, should Bawumia be given another opportunity because of the history of NPP or not? Joining me in studio is spokesperson for Kennedy Agyapong's camp, I should say, and he's a lawyer, Kwesi Kwarteng. Also joining me a little later, if you're able to reach him, is Dennis Miracles Abuaji, who also speaks for the Bawumia camp. How have you been feeling, and how have you been feeling with your new role from speaking for a government to an individual? How have you been?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and your viewers. So far, so good. They say once a soldier, always a soldier. Okay. You just have to, in science you call something adaptability, your ability to adapt to new roles, new events, new circumstances. Transiting from Ministry of Education to speaking for Honorable Kennedy Agyapong is almost the same, because at the end of the day, you are all projecting politically exposed people who, the only difference is that one happens to be more of an institution, but whichever way that institution was being headed by a politician or a politically exposed person. So I don't see my difference. It's just about having convictions and believing in what you can.
Imperial, for you to speak for somebody or a product or a service, you definitely must believe in that person, that the person is a sellable one, or the service is a sellable one, or the product is good enough, is fit for purpose. Among all the flag bearership and the debates that has been, coming up, why did you join the camp of Kennedy?
Well, just with the hindsight of having read social media pursuant to this conversation, I want to waive the whole idea of a debate and make it a discussion, because of the understanding out there that as soon as we say debate, we are coming to fight among ourselves. No, we are having a discussion about our party and how we can move forward.
Well, if spokespersons don't debate, still, the public will debate anyway.
I agree, but like I indicated, with hindsight of what is going on social media in relation to this particular event, where it was presented as though myself and my good brother Miracles are going to debate as if we are going to fight amongst ourselves. That is what I want to water down the impact to viewers and party faithfuls out there. That no. It's just a point of discussion. It's just an exchange of ideas, and of course, an exchange of selling your message and the vision that your candidate presents. But of course, now to your substantive question about why I am supporting Kennedy Agyapong, I'm not going to give you much story. Just like Kennedy himself, who is a very practical man, I'm supporting the Honorable Kennedy Agyapong because I am of the view that he can win us power in 2028. End of story.
Why? You have seen the trajectory. Maybe a little in a subsequent bulletin, we'll go in depth and how we came up with that data. But you can see clearly that it's very hard for somebody to go once and then they will win. They'll get the bid and then they'll win.
Talking about the general election?
Well, for general elections, for internal party or flag bearership races, we have seen that any person who didn't do well, when they come back, they actually did better. Would you say no to that?
Well, let me put it within this perspective. The conversation is more geared towards even the general election and even at the party level, because whichever way the party level, whoever gets to win is presented as a candidate for the party in the general election. What is in dispute has to do with whether or not people have come once in the general elections and have won. And there are precedents to that. Reference can be made to former President Jerry Rawlings. He came once and he won. Also, President Mahama, he also came once and he won. But of course, when you narrow the conversation to the NPP alone, we've not had a precedent where a candidate has been presented on just first basis and that candidate has won. So yes, I agree on that level. And let me state categorically that our argument is not to suggest or say that candidates who wants to come again on the party sake or contest at the primary level should not be given the opportunity. Everybody deserves a second chance. But what Kennedy Ejapong seeks to tell Ghanaians is just to give a historical account and the historical perspective of our electoral trajectory. And reference has been made to President Kufuor, President Rawlings, and of course, it's also important to also add that of our former leader, Professor Dubois. So, looking at all this context, yes, you can come again, but most times, if you look at the caveat upon which the party people have been basing on to make a determination on whether or not they are presenting such a candidate again, has always been benchmark on performance. And history will be the best guide for all of us. For instance, if you look at the case of that of Professor Dubois, from history, you realize that he was in the days of dark, had to campaign more or less against a military regime which was just on the verge of transiting to democracy, came into an election, had very few short space to prepare. Yes, still the party people felt like in the general election, his performance was not very impressive. And for that reason, they jettisoned him and replaced him with President Kufuor. In the case of President Kufuor, when President Kufuor came in 96, of course, the 96 general election, he lost. But the caveat has always been benchmark on performance. And so the party people then felt that he performed creditably well in the general elections, just supposing his performance to the time that he had, or he even finished his primaries. President Kufuor's primaries was around April thereabout. Ordinarily, you have to select your vice presidential candidate using about 3-4 months. So practically, Kufuor started campaigning in August, September thereabout, which means essentially he had about 3 months because those times the elections was in November. Yes, so he put a very strong performance and was able to garner about 39% votes. On that note, the party people believed that, well, based on the signals that he's been able to demonstrate, he was marketable, he was sellable, and then when we present him again, he was going to win. Again, if you move from beyond President Kufuor and also come to former President Akufo-Addo, in the case of Akufo-Addo, he had not even had that great time or opportunity to market himself. The highest office that President Akufo-Addo has ever held was a Minister of State. Yes, so when he came in his first attempt during the general elections, he was able to, his popularity was able to jettison and springboard the party to run off to the extent that we even lost the election at time with about 23,000 difference. The second time we even had to go to court where party people strongly felt that the man has won and maybe due to more practices and irregularities. It was then that he made that profound statement that I disagree with the decision of the court, but I accept same. And so he had also demonstrated very strongly that indeed when you present him again, he had the capacity to win the general elections for us. But I mean, Ken's argument bordered on the fact that if you juxtapose the case of President Akufo-Addo, if we juxtapose the case of President Kufuor to that of our former candidate and former Vice President, Dr. Alhaji Bawumia, clearly you can see that the 1.7 million votes difference, and context is also very important, especially when about our votes comparing to 2020 was reduced to about 2.1 million votes difference. Clearly, you realize that such a performance is not a performance that is so remarkable that the party people may say that, well, we are giving you a second chance. It is not, I'm not, it is not in any way to suggest that he cannot contest for the primaries. he can. Everybody deserves a second chance.
We're talking about who can win.
Yeah, who can win.
Actually, in 2028. I mean, but what do you say to the many reports that have come? I mean, there have been committees, and I like to reference the Ashanti region reports mainly. And we do not take away the ex-president. Many have said that Bawumia is actually paying for the sins of the ex-president. And so if he's a standalone person, then he would do better. I've got Miracles Owiredu joining me via phone on this conversation. And Miracles, thank you for joining us. And so what's really the camp? What is the Bawumia camp saying?
What's happening? Who's in the studio, please?
Well, of course, your colleague is Kwesi Kwati is in the studio.
Oh, I mean, in all humility, I would ask that you advise Kwesi to seize this conversation and get back into his constituency, Asante Atum North, for us to finish our rebuilding, our restructuring. It's too early. This is completely needless. Which
part of the conversation is needless?
Why are we discussing MPP primaries by this time, when we have a lot going on in rebuilding our party?
But the conversation is already on social media.
No, it is not. It is not. It is not. The party has calendar. The party has set a plan in sale. As we speak, the party is planning and working towards constitutional reforms. There's a conference coming up in July. What is he doing? Why?
Have you yourself not admitted that Bawumia deserves a second chance?
Where?
In any way or form, directly or indirectly?
Where? Why would you spend this precious airtime that we have from multimedia when we can be discussing the nurses who are on strike?
We have extensively. We have just gone by before we went on a break.
We are not interested. I'll give you a very good advice to my brother Kwesi Kwati that he should seize these things.
He's not the one setting any tone for the conversation. The flag himself.
Can you also allow me to speak, please? I'm not sure you expect me to say exactly what you want to say. I am saying that, in all humility, Mr. Kwesi Kwati, if I were him, I would seize this conversation around our internal contest and go to my constituency to help with the rebuilding process. That's what I'm saying.
What are we rebuilding? Let's talk about the rebuilding. What are we rebuilding for?
Nobody told me that this is what you're going to do. Otherwise, I would have called him to advise him not to even show up. We need to focus. We need to concentrate. That is what we are planning to do as a political party. And these things simply distract us. There will be time for this conversation.
I'm of the firm belief that my producer engaged you on this particular conversation.
No, he did not.
Agreed?
He did not tell me. He did not tell me this is what we're going to do. He never told me that.
What was the briefing you had?
If he had told me.
What was the briefing you had, Miracles?
I would have advised against it.
What briefing did you have to agree to come on?
When he called me, he didn't tell me there was going to be a debate on internal elections and you're going to have Kwesi Kwati and Miracles debating.
What did he say to you? Let's just have a conversation. What did he say to you? We can have a conversation on whatever briefing he gave you. What briefing did he give you?
He called me and he mentioned that there's been a comment that has been made. About the MPP, and so he will call me during the pause for me to react. He didn't tell me we were going to have internal debate on MPP internal elections. That's what he called me to tell me. And I am refusing to be part of such conversation. I think it's premature. I think it's unwarranted. And I would use your platform to advise all our party people that we should stay focused and not be distracted. There's a roadmap. There's a plan by the party. When it is time for these internal debates and contests, we will do it.
If the general public is interested as well?
No, but I think it's premature. We have our plan. We have our calendar as a party. Right now, we are working towards constitutional reforms and then working towards a conference in July. When it's time for presidential primaries, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia will come out and every form of debate will be held.
But the former vice president himself has made comments nearly about this. You think it's still premature?
He made a comment about what?
That he deserves a second chance.
When did he say that? Do you have him on tape? When? When did he say that? What the vice president has been doing has been to move around with the party to thank the people of this country and thank the party people and work with them to rebuild the party. So what is Kwesi Kwarteng doing? That we are in June. As we speak, our responsibility as an opposition party is to put the government on its toes. They have introduced Doomsday levy. We need to talk to them to withdraw it. Nurses are on strike. We need to appeal to the government to intervene so they get back. And then we use the precious airtime that multimedia is
Miracles, are you in any way saying that in any of the Vice President's interaction, thank you tours, anything at all, he has not in anything suggested that, said anything that's directly or indirectly about this?
It's a multimedia studio, a venue for a thank you tour for the new.
Of course, Miracles. You want to you want to situate this conversation better because we talk about anything that is newsworthy.
If the vice president or the general secretary or anybody in the party meets party people and they're having a party conversation and it comes up, I will not have an issue with it. I will not be complaining. But I'm saying that it is premature. It is completely not in the interest of the new patriotic party to be having such debate in the media.
All right, thank you.
It's wrong.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention then. We're still of the firm belief that this is a conversation that has sparked anyway, and the general public is quite interested in this. This is why we're having this conversation. But if Miracles is not ready to have that conversation, of course it's not a debate, and of course we can have healthy debates. So what's your reaction? They say that you should focus in your constituency and the resetting agenda.
Well, let me state that I have always maintained my stance and my composure that first I'm an MPP even before I aligned with any other candidate or any other hopeful. And so in as much as I may want to advance the cause of that hopeful or that candidate, I'm also mindful that I need to also keep my home and protect my home. But I wish to say that when you set standards for principles, we have to remind ourselves that they are not seasonal. And I'm not sure I have the capacity to determine your editorial policy. You also don't pick editorial policies just based on a vacuum.
Of course not.
And certainly it's based on commentaries around and comments that has been made by, even for the purpose of this conversation, politically exposed persons. Well, it's true that Miracle is right when he's indicated that it may not be time for campaign. But as a principal person, he should have said this when his boss, Dr. Bawumia, went to Takrady and tried to shift blame and suggest that there was a time where even 3 days to election, we increased fuel and it was meant as though it was designed for him to lose an election. So you cannot play the ostrich game and come on TV and pretend to be holier than thou and ask me to go into my constituency. Has he been in his constituency? When was the last time he visited his constituency? So I want to be measured on this, but I just want to say that even Kennedy Japan speaking did not speak out of a vacuum. He spoke in reaction to a certain history that has been put forth by Dr. Bawumia, his boss. And Kennedy's reaction was to give a proper context and a very factual account to the history, a leg of the history that has been buried, when Dr. Bawumia made a point that in MPP nobody has been made to go only once, but has been 2 or 3 occasions. You see, was it not the elections they were talking about, or this was another ceremony that you're talking about? During his thank you tour, he made such remarks, even to the extent that he had to, when he even went to lunch. Which is what has warranted this conversation. Nobody's speaking out of a vacuum. You see, what Miracle fails to understand that MPP is an intellectual party, is a party of intellectuals, and synonymous with party of intellectuals. As soon as you put out something, it opens room for discussion, criticisms, and debate. When your boss suggests to party people, as though in the history of MPP, no presidential candidate has been made to go for primaries once, what does it do in an intellectual community? It opens room for discussion. So it is not out of place, and it is also not wrong when a candidate or any other person who has interest in also running for similar office also sees that, well, as soon as you bring this debate, then there is also another leg of the debate where we may also have to let the party people also know that, well, in the case of Professor Dubois, he went once. And even those instances or those references that has been made by Dr. Bawumia, they were caveated on performance. I mean, I don't think this is so much of a big deal. And I'm surprised why he's making it as though we cannot criticize the NDC, and still advance the cause of the MPP. Primaries and selecting a candidate is not an event, it's a process. Certainly, when you go into an opposition, it requires rebuilding, it requires regrouping, it requires criticism, it requires taking responsibility. And of course, even to the extent that you also have to, this whole thank you to is also part of the process.
You mentioned the resetting agenda. Currently, what is with the resetting agenda?
I don't know. I don't speak for him. Maybe he may be able to explain it further. But the point I'm trying to make is that restructuring a party is not an event where you get up and only wait for an election calendar and say that, well, in January or March 2026, we are going for an election. It's process where you may have a thank you tour, where comments will be made, those comments I think they should be tolerant enough.
I mean, finally, before we just have a few minutes to wrap the show, finally,
they make a point, they should be tolerant for interrogations and discussions.
NPP has tried Bawumia. Why do you think they should try a candidate they don't know, they have uncertainty for? If you're a business owner, would you take that decision?
I mean, it's a skewed question anyway. But if you're a business owner and you present a candidate and the outcome is that 2.1 million people, you see, again, context is very important,
right?
And you need to lay the foundation. In the case of former Vice President Dr. Bawumia, he has had the opportunity to even market himself for about 16 years, 8 years as a vice presidential candidate and 8 years as a vice president. Just went into an election and lost about 1.7 million votes. Interestingly, out of 276 constituencies, about 199 constituencies, we lost there. And if you as the candidate bring some of these conversations up, essentially making a case or advancing a case that you have to be given an opportunity to go again, I don't think you should dismiss it when people bring your own data, your own performance, and remind you that in the case of the NPP, conversations like this are pivoted on the performance of the candidate. So they can.
I'm certain there's more weeks and more months to discuss this a lot more on the Joy News channel. Of course, we'll be coming to you whenever there are more comments to spark a debate, of course. And thank you for joining us today.
But I want to end. I want to end on this note.
The show has actually ended.
If indeed, Miracle's purported advice was genuine, I'm sure he saw the flyers earlier. And again, nobody. I
mean, of course. I mean, I want to state categorically that Miracles Abuaji was engaged prior to this. And of course, we cannot book you for you to walk in here.
Which TV
as if it's a
station put
surprise,
somebody on the flyer without the person's consent?
So
Which TV station?
I'm certain that people
So
can
he
see
would have called me. He saw the flyer.
We broadcast to very discerning
If the said advice was genuine, I'm sure he would have called me and given it to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Set standards and the same standards, you betrayed them.
Well, thank you for joining us today. And thank you as well for joining us and for watching the show today. There's more if you log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Emefa Akusia Adati. Please stay for our subsequent bulletins.